Hi all, I have on the show today an amazing person I met many years ago at an Operational Excellence conference in Sydney. Travis and the people at US Synthetic and Champion X have truly led a sustainable excellence journey, and today we're going to explore this. It's an amazing conversation, I can tell you ahead of time, because I've already had the pleasure of having it and now you're going to hear it. Travis has kindly provided to help a copy of their excellence model that you can download from the Enterprise Excellence podcast under resources. Please feel free to go grab it. Let's get into the show.
Welcome to the Enterprise Excellence podcast, where we aim to help create a better future. Learn from our world's experts how to improve and create enduring, high-performance, low-impact enterprises. Learn how to enhance morale, customer and purpose centricity, focus, and calmness. Learn how to create and sustain a culture of excellence at all levels of your organisation.
I'm your host, Brad Jevons, coming to you from Brisbane, Australia. Welcome to episode 159 of the Enterprise Excellence podcast. It is such a pleasure to have Mr. Travis Russell on the show with us today. Travis is the Global Director of Talent and Leadership Development at Champion X. Travis previously was the Production Manager at US Synthetic, Shingo Prize-winning organisation. Today we're going to explore Travis's approach to achieving enterprise excellence within organisations and share his insights. Let's get into the episode. Travis, thanks so much for joining us today, mate.
Yeah, Brad, thank you. It's good to see you again. It's been a long time, but I'm excited to be here and chat with you today.
It's such a pleasure, mate. For listeners, Travis and I met at an event years ago, and I gained myself amazing insights from him then. So I'm so looking forward to this conversation. But mate, the thing I'm keen to know, first of all, is what got you involved in enterprise excellence in the first place, mate? How'd you end up down this pace, focusing on a culture change within an organization?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. We back in 2004-ish, we had a problem, like most organizations run into, and kind of kicks off their journey for learning, right? Our problem was we needed to double sales within a very short amount of time, within a few months. And our production manager at the time, who's now the president and CEO, he came out and he asked us a question, just a basic question. He said, "It looks like sales are going to double over the next few months. What do we need to do?" And, as you can imagine, we said, well, we probably need to hire twice the amount of people. We need to double our machines, and we need to double our floor space as quickly as we can. And he said, "Oh, that's great. That's good." He said, "But how long is it going to take us to hire that many people? How long is it going to take us to get machines? The first machine is going to take 6 months to get here, and then it'll be about a year of lead time per machine after that. So is that even realistic?" And at that point, I mean, we were working 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, everybody. And we thought we're going to die. But we had a mindset of we got to take care of the customer. And he said, "What if there's a different way?" And we were all thinking, "You're crazy, Rob. There is no other way." We've been in this game for a while. There's no other way. And that's when he started. Rob Galloway brought in continuous improvement to US Synthetic. He went to a conference, learned about it, and brought it back and said, "What if there's this different way? And are you guys willing to try it, experiment with us?" And we said, "Yeah, we got to try something." And I'll never forget, Brad. After a few months, we were thinking, because I was on the shop floor at the time, and we were just thinking, what happened to that double, our demand, Rob? We're going to all get fired. There's no demand. And in fact, it had doubled. It just didn't feel that way because we had learned some of these principles and we had so much low-hanging fruit that we were able to see some big gains very quickly. And at that point, all of us were bought in.
That's amazing. That's a cracking outcome, especially in such a short period of time. And like, mate, with it, like I know with US Synthetic, you shifted down this whole cultural approach focused on behaviors and truly trying to work to make it stick. And I think it's one of the best stories I've ever heard of, really going down a path to make it stick. What brought the insight to the organization to go that path versus the traditional lean cost cutting, just do it for a short-term gain type approach? How did that play out a different direction for you guys?
There's so many things that happened over the years, Brad, but at first it was just, we've got a burning platform. We've got to figure out how to deal with this. And it was a good burning platform because it was sales, right? And so we were in a good place. We also had an amazing foundation. The culture of US Synthetic was already just amazing. We just loved it. The founder, Louis Pope, he just had these core values that we all wanted to embody. And so the culture was very good, but we just didn't know how to do things any different. And so as we learned it, we ended up, Rob and Dave, our director of HR, they brought in a guy named Hima Mooley, and they came in and they said, or when he came in, they said, will you help us capture who we are? Because people come in and they're asking us all the time, how did you get to where you are? What could we do to get there, type of thing. As any company that sees a little bit of success, people want to learn, right? And so they asked him, he was a cultural expert, and they said, can you come in and try to capture our culture? And Hima went through this process of interviewing about every single person at US Synthetic, which was at the time, if I remember right, we're about 450 people. And he interviewed just about everybody. And he came back and said, here is what I found about your culture. Here's who you are. You have a greater purpose than just making money. And he said, from what I discovered, really your purpose here is to improve lives. And he said, and everybody embodies that, and everybody's bought into that, and everybody wants to move forward toward that. And so we thought, oh, that's awesome. And then he said, here's some core values that I think embody Louis, and then everybody else is kind of a reflection of Louis. And so he came in with these, we call them our T-frogs. It's our core values: trust, fun, which is a huge part of US Synthetic, respect, openness, where am I at? Growth and service. And so those were our core values. Those were the things that he found that mattered most to everybody. And so it really, at that point, we discovered it's really a cultural game. And it's so much more than just cutting costs. It's so much more than just, the numbers. It's really about people and human beings and growing people. And that's where I think we kind of discovered this is more than just a fad or a program or a toolkit. It's really something special and something different and unique.
It's amazing, isn't it? Like when you've got that foundation of great culture built from Louis and the leadership shadow. And I've always had a question in my mind, Travis, too. Like, I think we distill our values and we distill our principles, and we can actually then, I guess, lead it and develop it. But like you have sometimes, like within US Synthetic, and I know other companies I work with, the culture is just oozed so much by the leader that it is just part of our DNA. But then there's always the question of me, well, what happens when that leader leaves? And is that fragile if you don't distill it and actually figure out what it is and then start to, bring it more into verbal language everywhere? What's your thoughts on that, mate?
Oh, it's so fragile, Brad, so fragile. And in my new role working with Champion X, I work with companies all around the globe, and we see it all the time. We see a leader that gets momentum, that's doing some great things, and they leave and it hadn't been instilled yet. And so you see things start to kind of fall back in many ways. And at US Synthetic, we're so lucky, so blessed to have so many leaders that embodied those principles. And so Louis, when he retired, he left it in the hands of those that had. He had made sure that's who we were. And to that question, Brad, that was a concern for us and still is today, right? Rob at some point will retire, and then what's going to happen? And so part of bringing him in, we were able to capture the culture and the essence of it. And it's something we actually teach now. So when somebody gets hired in, we actually teach them, this is our culture. And for Champion X, our larger organization, that's part of my role, is to go out and help people understand what culture is, how it happens, how it's created, who creates it. And it's through leaders. And so we talk about what type of culture do we want? And we break it down into, it's a combination. Culture is really, we talk about cultures are repeated behaviors. Some organizations will say, well, culture is just going to happen. You can't control it. And the reality of it is culture is a combination of our beliefs that shape our behaviors, that output artifacts, results, systems, processes, right? And so then we talk about, well, what creates culture? It's our experiences. Our experiences shape our beliefs that drive our behaviors, that output our artifacts. And so then we talk about, well, who creates the experiences that shape the beliefs? It's leaders. And so, we want to be very, very very clear about the culture we want. And we have to be very deliberate and intentional about the behaviors that we choose to demonstrate every day as leaders, because it's going to, whether we want it to or not, our behaviors will create an experience for the team that will start to shape beliefs and drive behaviors. And so we're very intentional about it now, where before it was kind of like, well, yeah, we all love Lewis. We all hope that we can continue that legacy. But we've discovered it has to be built. It has to be intentional. And so we're still learning how to teach it, how to, create that, so that if Rob retires, we used to always say, if Rob gets hit by a bus, we're in so much trouble. Or if Lewis got hit by a bus, then we decided, let's say it in a positive way. If they won the lottery or retired early, then what would happen? And so we're trying to be very intentional about creating the culture that we want.
Yeah, that's an awesome conversation, mate. And, I got to admit, Travis, when I first got involved in lean and continuous improvement, I was, for the first probably 6 months, just fascinated by the tools and all the techniques. And then luckily I met Dr. Peter Hines and Chris Butterworth I don't know if you know them both, but they're great guys out of the UK. And then I learned, it's all about leadership and culture, and I think for me, that was a bit of a step back, because I'm like, wow, what do I know about leadership and culture in any big way? I got these tools and techniques down, like I got this bit down, but it's been a journey for me since. But it sounds like you're immersed in it. And I got to admit, I was immersed in it with a great leader too back in the day. I had a leader called Andy Hecky and another guy called Jack Winson, and they just oozed amazing culture back, but it's a shock to the system sometimes. I don't know if you went through that, mate. Were you more of a technical guy too?
No, absolutely. I mean, there were times where we used a hammer, to put in a screw.
Yeah.
We were using tools for everything, kind of throughout parts of our journey, because we're learning, right? We're just on this learning journey, and we made so many mistakes, and we still do all the time. But we did. Sometimes we'd get very technical, and we'd just go right into the tool. And we thought, well, if we just make it look different. So an example of that, Brad, we had discovered the idea of flow cell, right? So let's just go and let's create this flow cell. And so our whole journey, we've had different coaches that have kind of coached us through and helped us. And, and so Rob would bring people in, and then he hired Eric Pope, who was Lewis's son, to be the production manager. And they were both just thinking, okay, how are we going to do this? We're on this learning journey. And so they said, you don't have to move your stuff around. Just go put a sticker on the machines throughout, because we were in departments, right? So go put a sticker on each machine. And then, just follow that path with those and just watch, right? And so we said, okay. And then we did it for a while, and we thought, okay, that's awesome. Now let's move them. So we moved them all. We're a batch and queue process. And the idea of moving them all together is that then you can do single piece flow or work toward getting there and reduce all of the inventory piles in between each machine. And what ended up happening, we hadn't changed the culture or the behaviors or the beliefs around anything, we hadn't developed people around it. So it was just tools. Let's just do a tool. And what ended up happening is we had machines right next to each other with thousands of parts stacked in between each machine. The behaviors didn't change, just the location of the machines had changed. And so, we went through several discoveries of we use the tool, and then we had this incredible discovery of it's really about learning the principles, helping people shape beliefs around the principles so that we can behave in a way of using the principles to help us to see and eliminate waste and problems. And then the artifacts change, right? You would go to the flow cells now and you would see, the right standard in process stock in between, for instance. And so it was, we had a lot of the tools.
Yeah, it's I think it's a very common story, isn't it? But it's amazing when you start to understand this cultural piece and the, leading to the principles and the whole leadership shadow and piece. It's a whole different game. Now, mate, one of the insights I gained in my life was when I was with you at that conference, and I think I said to you something like, Travis, but you're about leading culture, and really you've defined that culture at US Synthetic and you're leading it. But what do you do when you see poor culture? And you said something to me about standing side by side, shoulder to shoulder with the person. But do you mind just explaining that? I thought that was one of the most profound statements I've ever heard of great leadership.
Yeah, you think even leaders with great intentions, we often go to the work site or we bring people into our office, right? And we end up sitting across from them or standing across from them, and we ask them, what's the problem? Now, if you're not in a mindset of continuous improvement, if you don't have the mindset for it, then you might even go out and you might say, what did you do? What's your problem, right? We look for the 5 who's and we go through the blame storming rather than brainstorming. And even if we don't say that, even if we do have a continuous improvement mindset, we might go to somebody and we might have this conversation of, we see there's a problem, what happened? And we're still standing face to face with the person. And so it's so subtle, Brad, but it makes the biggest difference that we've seen, that we've learned, that when you're standing there face to face and asking questions, they take it personal. It feels like a personal attack. And even though we thought, man, we've got a pretty good culture, we've got some traction, we're moving forward, it still felt like, for a lot of people when we were asking these questions, that it was a personal attack. In fact, Eric Pope, he gained the title Simon Cowell at one point because, he would just ask questions, and he was 100% just attacking the process, but the person felt very attacked. And so we just had this discovery that when we would go face to face versus when we would just a little subtle change, we would shift our weight, stand next to somebody, and we'd look at the process together. And I'll tell you that there's this one gal, her name was, I'm going to make a name up because I don't know if she wants me to say her name or not, but there's this gal, her name's Kelly. And Kelly, we went out and we were having this great conversation, I thought. And we're having this conversation and I'm just asking her about all of these problems. And we had a couple of people there. And it was kind of to show, hey, look how wonderful Kelly is, how she's able to see these problems and what she does with these problems. Look at her run the business system and how she transitions that right into informing her improve the business system. And as we had that conversation, I just saw that Kelly was getting really uncomfortable. And I said, Kelly, it's all right. We just want to understand your work and your process and your sequence and how you run, your sequence to help you to see waste and eliminate it. And Kelly goes, I know, but I feel so nervous because you guys are all just staring at me. And I just had this aha moment. I thought, oh man, I'm doing it all wrong. I said, hey, can everybody come this way? And so we all shifted next to her, and I stood right next to Kelly. I said, hey, Kelly, will you show me your process and show me all the gaps in the process? Same question. And all of a sudden she got totally comfortable and she was on fire. She was just saying, oh yeah, let me show you. See, when I do this, see how this is off here, and see how we can potentially drop this, and see how this spills here, and see, and it was just this whole dialogue of look at all the problems, and look at how when we do this sequence, it exposes all these problems. And then I go over here and we have this conversation every 2 hours for 5 minutes where we talk about the problems and we ask, what are we going to do about them? And then everybody takes, some action item. And then at the end of the day, we spend some time solving these problems. And it changed everything, Brad. It took the wall down. She didn't take it personal, and we were able to focus on the process. And I'll tell you, Rob talks about it all the time. And since he challenged us to really learn and understand this concept, he said, I have never, ever in my life found an exception to this rule, that we have great people outperforming broken systems every day. And all we should do every day is go out and say, first, thank you. Thank you for outperforming this broken system. You do so much to make this work. Second, I am sorry that you have to deal with it. And then third, do you have any thoughts or ideas of how we can improve it? And really, every time you go out as a leader, again, leaders drive culture through the experiences that we have. And so if you have a belief as a leader that you have great people, that you have the great people and they're capable of doing great things, if you really believe that as a leader, then your behavior is you're going to go out there and you're going to focus on the process and not the people. And it changes everything. And we've just seen it over and over and over again, elevate people in so many different ways.
Yeah, I love, Travis, how you're mentioning too, mate, it starts with that belief, like that core drivers of, what is our purpose? What are our values? And then that can feed our emotions and feed our thoughts, which drives our behavior, can't it? Like it's like this loop. Mate, yeah. How do you go about helping leaders alter their belief? Go deep within and go, no, I want to alter this thing. I want to alter my perception and start to believe that I got to, we have people who are trying their best within a broken system, and we got to just, go there and understand, be curious.
Yeah. That curiosity is key, right? So, we've just seen over and over again that it just takes experiences. We've had so many times that we've been, working with leaders, and it's just, I don't believe you, right? I've been in this game for so long. That idea of blame the process, not the people, that's not true. I don't believe it. And we get this, we hear this feedback all the time. And, then we go into, well, here's an example. We tell stories and we show examples, but for that individual, they themselves have had so many experiences that wasn't true, that their belief is deep. And so their behavior is, no, I'm going to go and attack the person instead of the process. And so really what we've discovered is that leader just has to have different experiences. So, Eric often talks about this story, and we saw him do this so many times. And I try to mimic, you have great leaders, then you want to mimic them. And I've had some incredible leaders and mentors. But Eric, we had some new product development engineers. And it's the old story of, you develop product and it works perfectly, throw it over the wall to production and it should work perfectly. And why doesn't it? And what's going on? And there's this conversation with a leader that didn't quite believe yet in this idea that it's process problems and not people problems. And he said, if they would just follow the standard. And we thought, okay, we've been in this world where we know standards break all the time. Standards are just meant to help us to see waste so we can eliminate it. And it's our best known way, but there's gaps in it. And so Eric said, come for a walk. Let's go for a walk. Let's just walk the whole process from start to finish, and let's look at it together. Mm-hmm. And they walked the process and said, okay, here's the standard. Here's what the standard calls out. And here's the process. Let's just watch it for a minute. How many times did they have to break standard? Why? And had they followed standard, what would have happened? Well, we would have scrapped that part, or it would have been unsafe, or what, And so they walked the whole process just asking those questions over and over again. And at the end of the walk, he turned and said, I cannot believe we get any good products out any day of the week. Because he was amazed that our systems, he thought, just follow the standards, our systems are perfect. And he had this experience that started to shift his belief. Now, like any of us, that was one experience, and he had many experiences previously that had to kind of be changed, right? And so every opportunity that we had, we would go for a walk and say, anytime it was, hey, what's wrong with this person, or what's wrong? Let's go walk the process. Let's go see. And every single time that we'd walk the process, you just had this deep appreciation for how good every single individual was. That nobody comes to work saying, I just want to see how bad I can do today.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody naturally wants to do a good job. And so really creating a circumstance where people can feel safe to solve problems, feel safe to expose problems. And once you create that circumstance, people will expose problems like crazy. And then you enable them by teaching them the skills to solve problems. And it was just so fun every time we did one of those walks with somebody to see the change that somebody had when you actually go to the work site, you watch the process, and every time you walk away with this deep appreciation of the people that you have and what they're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, mate? Because I'm guessing, like, Travis, there's training elements to what you're doing in your world now, but it's that whole learning on the job bit, isn't it, with coaching and the power of going and seeing, actually leading from the front or going to the front. It's seeing is believing, isn't it? There's a saying in that.
Yeah, and there's no substitute for it.
No. So everyone, there's a great tip of a behavior that can help people gain insights. I had a Dr. Mark Williams, psychologist, neuroscience, on the podcast, and he was talking about leadership development and building leadership capability to be curious, And he said one thing you can do is get them out of the workplace and take them to a preschool for a few days to just engage with preschoolers. I thought that was such a great comment. For some reason, there's no one more curious than like a 4-year-old. But as soon as we get older, we start losing our curiosity and we start to lock in our paradigms, don't we, typically?
We do. We sure do. In fact, we do a simulation where we build towers, and at the end, you have to put some weight on it. And there's a study, we learned it from somebody else, and they had done a study that first graders and kindergartners outperform CEOs and engineers on it. And why? Because they're curious. They are curious, and as they build the tower, they test nonstop, right? They check the weight, can it hold it? And because they're so curious and they're not afraid to fail and make mistakes and learn from them, that they always perform better.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Like, and I guess again, it's this constant learning. Like, you need to have that safe culture, which it sounds like you really you have at US Synthetic and Champion X, and then from there, it's just constantly, I guess, learning and development, which is your journey forward now, mate, isn't it? Like, I love how you're leading the excellence journey, but your title is Director of Talent and Leadership Development. Like that. That is powerful. What's the path forward now for you, mate, with the broader organization where you're across many companies now in the group and helping them forward?
Yeah, I mean, now it's just it's how do we create this differentiating culture is what we always talk about. And so we have what we call a strategy tree, and the strategy tree is just a model to help us to teach and align, right? And so the idea is that we all use this model to look at how we can connect the work that we do every day to all the way up to improving lives. So at the top of the pyramid, you have the very top, and on there we have our purpose. And our purpose as an organization is to improve lives. We're a purpose-driven organization. That's what we're all about. And Champion X has adopted that is what we're about. But in order to improve lives, and when we talk about improve lives, it's improving the lives of our customers, our employees, our shareholders, our suppliers, our communities, everybody that has a stake in that business. We want them to have a great life and enjoy the things that matter most to them. And so if there's anything standing in the way of that, we want to eliminate it. We want to improve it, right? And so in order for us to be enabled to fulfill our purpose, because we aspire to that, right? That's what we aspire to. But there's days that we would probably go into work and say, man, today was not a good day. Yeah. But that's what we aspire to and what drives us. But in order to do that, we have to have a strong business. And so we talk about what is our business? What business are we in? And what is our business? And what must we be the best at? Or the leader in, right? Because we don't want to aspire to be second place. We want to aspire to be, the leader in our industry and in our businesses, so that we have a strong, what we call a strong economic engine that enables us to fulfill our purpose. And so, we're working with all the organizations around Champion X on really going through an experience to bring what improving lives actually means to life. That's what we're trying to do. And so we do many different activities and experiences to try to bring that to life of what that actually means. And then we go through some activities of really looking into what is your business, because it's Champion X is to unlock energy. That's our business. But it's a publicly traded organization. And so how do we unlock energy? It's through every single operating company understanding their business and understanding how they're, performing in their business. Are we the leader? Are we growing? Are we, are we looking at all the right metrics to make sure, do we have great cash flow? Do we have growth? Do we have a strong business? And so when we look at that, we build that out with them. And then we talk about, well, in order to have a strong business, we need to have some operating principles. And so we look at our operating principles, and first and foremost is to be customer advocate. We need to know who our customers are. We need to know what they value. We need to know how we're performing to that value. And then we need to understand what are our processes and our systems that we currently have that are delivering that value. And then we all need to understand our individual contribution or connection to that. And then look at our systems that we have that contribute to that. And then the idea, and so we work with all of the different organizations to really map that out and understand that. Who are your customers? And we discover a lot of cool things, Brad. We discover that there's some organizations that half of the team doesn't know who their customers are. They just know what they do from a day-to-day basis. And so we go through that discovery together. And once we understand who our customers are, we look at those processes, and then we start to go over the understanding of what is waste, what's value added, what's non-value added, what's waste, and how can we create a circumstance that we can all see and eliminate waste. And then once we kind of go through that process, the idea is now let's go map out your processes. Let's look for waste. Let's learn the principles of excellence or the principles of continuous improvement, because those are meant to help us see and expose waste. And then let's go eliminate waste. Let's go do it, as quickly as we can. And so then it's working with each organization on, building out what is your improvement system? How do people, when somebody has an idea or sees a waste and wants to eliminate it, what's your system as an organization to enable that? Because if you don't, and we say let's all go see and eliminate waste, and then we don't have a way of enabling that, then we can fall short from it pretty quick. And so it's really about building these connections. We have alignment, And then it's engaging everybody by engaging their hearts and minds into the work. And then it's empowering them through skills, systems, principles, processes. And so that's our model. That's our process that we go through to help everybody. And Rob shares a story that we love to repeat. He talks about there's this guy, and maybe you've heard it. I've heard different versions of it, but there's a man that worked for, or there's a person that worked for this organization for 40 years. For 40 years, he had been working for this organization. And at the end of his career, he's going to retire. HR pulls him in to do an exit interview and says, what feedback do you have for us? What have you learned? And he looked at him and he said, you had my hands for 40 years. You could have had my mind for free. Think about the power of that, right? And so really, what are we doing to multiply the hearts and minds of the people that we work with every day? And that's really the game for me of what me and my team are working on, is how do we engage more minds throughout the organization to create this mindset of continuous improvement, to build a skill set around it. And then comes the tool set. Now we can use the tool set, right? But we've got to have this mindset, this skill set, and then the tool set is for execution.
And Travis, I love that learning journey and how you built that up, because, I guess at Champion X, you're clear on your purpose, you are clear on your principles, and you're really clear on leadership development. And then you're really building events and learning and coaching approaches to help people align to purpose and customers, then to help them engage and align strategically based on that, but also the measures, and then help them. Then you're training and developing skills in improvement, but you're linking it all back to your principles of it. And then you're developing leadership capability to be able to create the environment to sustain it and keep it going on. Like, mate, that's a beautiful approach. And it's so powerful that it's not some cookie cut consultant built type program you're doing. It's your program. It is Champion X. This is us, and everything bolts back to the purpose and the principles. And it's amazing, mate.
Yeah. And it's so much fun. And Brad, it resonates with people, it really does. And when you think, man, I've been dealing with these problems for the last 20 years of my career, and now you're saying that we can actually work on solving them, and I can be part of that. It's pretty empowering and pretty exciting. And it's my favorite word is, if it should be fun. It really should be. Problem solving is fun. And so if you're not having fun because you're not solving problems, then you're not doing it right. And so it should be fun.
I can hear it in what you're mentioning, the spaghetti building game and those types of things that you're doing. You're making the learning based on the principles, engaging and fun with everything you're doing. And that approach to experiential learning, that's really impressive, mate.
Yeah. And the process for us is kind of that hear, see, do, teach, right? So hear it and see it. And we use a lot of simulations to teach that and do that. But if you don't go right out to the work site and do it, and then turn around and try to teach somebody else, you lose so much of it, and it never becomes practical. It just becomes philosophical. And for it to work and to multiply and to really learn it, you got to do it. You really got to do it.
Yeah, that's mega. I have that old saying, I do, we do, you do. I don't know where that comes from, but I think it's
I like that.
Yeah. I think it links out of karate, mate. I think it's the shuhari out of karate. And I think it's the westernized version of it. Hey, Travis, this has been an amazing conversation, mate. And I've gained so many insights like I knew I would, as well as I'm sure our listeners would. Mate, what would be your 2-minute tip to a company where they're like, okay, I want to be able to get on this more sustainable journey where I can truly get this culture of continuous improvement? What would be that tip you'd give them, mate, if they're starting from a baseline where really we don't have those, we're not connected to purpose, measures, principles, and leadership as yet? What would you say?
Oh, that's a good question. one thing that I'd challenge somebody to do if you're starting your journey is to go learn all that you can. Read books. There are so many out there, so many great books and information out there. So study, read books, go to some work sites, and there's so many different groups, you included. I'd say listen to Brad's podcast. Listen to Brad's podcast. I'd say that 10 times over. And there's so many podcasts out there. There's so many, Paul Akers puts out a 2-second lean, and you can get on and you can just watch some quick videos, right? And so you can learn so much from it. So if you don't have the means or time to go to a work site, to go benchmark somebody, jump on and just search, and you'll find so many great Gimbas, so to speak, so many work sites and examples that are on the internet. If you can go somewhere, go in person. That way you can ask questions, you can dive deeper, you can do some understanding. And I'd say that's good. Learning is good. Do as much as you can. But it means nothing if you don't go do. Just go do. Learn something, go try it. And you're going to fail. You're going to fail lots, but go try it and try it again and try it again. And I just say, learn and do, learn and do. Don't become a philosopher of continuous improvement. Become a practitioner and start your learning journey now by just going and doing something. And to follow up with that, I'd say, wherever you're at, if you have one person that's a continuous improvement thinker in your organization, I challenge you this year to double that to 2. If you have 5, double it to 5, because it's about engaging minds. So if you have one person engaged, engage 2 minds, engage 5 minds. And as you do that, if you have 5 improvements a year, double that to 10. And I challenged Rob the other day in a conference. They had 59,000 improvements last year. And wow. I said, and even you, Rob, I said, I challenge you to go from 59,000 to 118,000. Yeah. Because it is a learning journey. And so that's my 2-minute tip is learn all you can, go practice it as quickly as possible, and double your rate of improvement by really doubling your engaged minds.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Travis, with yourself, mate, and what's been a recent insight for you, mate? Like, you've given me a few this episode already, but what's been a recent insight for you?
I went and visited a place called Seating Matters in Ireland, and they're one of the best continuous improvement organizations I've ever seen. Ryan and his brothers, they started this company. His mom was part of that, and we went, and I was blown away at how quickly they have created this culture that is inspiring and energetic, and they're just going so fast. And as we were there, we kept seeing names on everything. And I'm sure you've seen this in maybe your home and workplaces and everywhere, but everyone has their junk drawer or their junk corner or whatever it might be. And they had that as well. And they identified that as a problem. Somebody brought that up and said, that's waste. That's a problem. Every time I go to this shared area, the stuff's everywhere. I can't find what I need or whatever. And so they have adopted this process or created, I guess I never asked, called total ownership. And the idea is somebody is going to have their name. Someone's going to volunteer and they're going to put their name on that shared area and they will own it. And the best part about this, Brad, that just I loved was it's that person's lab to learn and discover how to apply these principles to see and eliminate waste. And everything's connected to their organizational systems so that there's not all these subsystems, because that's wasteful too. And so they've discovered all of this as they went along. And so we went to one area and Ryan asked for, her name has escaped me now. Now I'm embarrassed about that. Shoot. Because she's wonderful, but she came over and she walked us through, this is my area. And so I own it. And so I was learning the principle of 5S or 3S is what they call it. And she said, and as I discovered this principle, I practiced it here and I learned so much. And then I learned about Kanban and replenishment And so, we have these consumables. So we implemented Kanban here, and we connected it to our material handler route. And so just this idea of total ownership, that somebody is going to own a machine, an area, a system, and they're going to make sure that all of the continuous improvement principles and concepts are learned and applied there and connected to the organizational system in the least waste way. And she just talked about how much she had learned by going through that process and having that. And they don't have these junk drawers or these junk corners. Every area in there is connected to their overall system. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's great. It's certainly ownership and empowerment in that story you're telling, isn't it? Like that's amazing.
Yeah, it was.
So Travis, thank you so much, mate, for your knowledge and insights in the past and now, mate, and what you'll continue to do for everyone going forward. Mate, how can people reach out to you or connect if they want to be connected for the future?
Yeah, send me an email, travis.russell@championx.com, and reach out anytime. We love to, as you can tell, I'm very passionate about this. I love this. And come out and visit US Synthetic anytime you want, and give us a call, and we can set up a tour, and you can come see the incredible people at US Synthetic, because they are really incredible people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Travis, thanks again, mate. Thanks for the knowledge and helping us create a better future, mate. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. Appreciate it. Thanks for letting me be on your show.
Cheers, mate. Bye for now. What an amazing episode. Remember, you can get hold of a copy of Champion X's Excellence Model from the Enterprise Excellence Podcast website under Resources. Please feel free to go get hold of it. There were two key takeaways for me from this episode. First major insight was linking training and the whole development of people back to the organization's purpose, the strategy deployment system, and its principles. I really envisaged, when Travis was talking about this, training where you're training to the principles and then hanging the learning into that. And I love how he spoke about experiential learning, using practicals, go-sees, other examples where you can really bring the principles to life. And through this, you achieve great outcomes and people develop. The power is that it's all linked back to culture. And while you're training in areas of enterprise excellence and continuous improvement, you're also enhancing and supporting the cultural aspect of the organization. Just an amazing element. And of course, the final factor there of leadership and the way that we train and develop leaders to lead the principles. Just an amazing conversation. The second key takeaway for me was the power of great leaders and defining the culture that they create and use this to sustain and improve into the future. You really heard that story at US Synthetic, how they had that help come in to actually distill, what makes our culture so great? And then they're able to document that and use that to train and develop and coach leaders, but of course all there to develop leaders, but also their total excellence journey into the future. What a great episode. Thanks again, Travis. You're a champion. Appreciate you sharing your knowledge and helping us create a better future. Bye for now.